There are so many facets to the wonderful world of witchcraft. Every witch will practice in his or her own way. That's the beauty of the craft. And that's why we say no one person can speak for the craft, because it's too big. So many times there seem to be aspects of the craft that contradict one another. The craft is a cohesive system from its perspective, but from the perspective of the different people practicing it, it's never going to feel cohesive. You have to take things system by system. There's all kinds of life on Earth. There are trees, there are jellyfish, there are human beings, there are wolves, there are amoeba, there are bacteria. But to impose the same structures and rules of order upon each and every life form wouldn't work, because they each have their own individual unique way to exist in order to be a part of the ecosystem. From the ecosystem's perspective, everything fits together perfectly. From the perspective of each individual system within a larger ecosystem, things are a certain way. But those things aren't the same certain way when you come from the perspective of a different part of that ecosystem. All of that to say that within the craft, you're going to find different ways that work. Also within the craft, you're going to find so much nonsense that doesn't work for anybody, ever, based on superstition. We have a lot of talks on why I'm not fond of superstition as a methodology of working magic. But even they have their place. My recommendation to you is to take the same attitude that I have and to let people be. Let people do their thing. Live and let live. People will eventually figure it out for themselves, and if they don't, they don't. It's really not our responsibility to police the craft. And that's why you'll hear me say again and again, there are no witch police. There are people who try to be witch police, but the craft's one and only law is do what you will. And it takes care of itself. It takes care of itself. It's amazing how it takes care of itself. The craft has no problem surviving without our help. The best thing that we can do is follow our own heart and our own understanding and find a system that we like or that we are interested in and train in that system so that we can become powerful in our craft and then branch out as we will. The reason I bring all of this up is because you're going to hear different ideas regarding some of the things that I want to talk about today. So I just want to preface everything by saying this is just my perspective. And we can say that generally about Ariel's Corner. Ariel's Corner is a school. It is. It does function as a school. There are courses, there are lessons, all of that. But I'm just teaching you my way of doing things. That's why it's Ariel's Corner. It's not the Witch's Corner. Those of you who have taken a Witch's Primer notice that I start with spiritual practice. Not spellcasting, spiritual practice. We learn how to consecrate our food as a spiritual practice. We learn how to purify our energy body as a spiritual practice. And then as you move on in that training, your spiritual practice is deepened with things like grounding and centering, protection, trance, meditation, etc. Then you learn how to cast a circle, and then you learn things like spellcasting. So spiritual practice is one part of the craft. Another part of the craft is magic as spellcasting. The way that I teach it, almost all spellcasting involves creating a specific thought form according to your will. And there's all kinds of theory that we incorporate, as well as techniques that we can incorporate in order that that thought form be built solidly, efficiently, and effectively to bring about a specific result. A spell is a type of imposition of one's will upon a situation. And when we hear that, we think, oh, isn't that manipulative? Well, yeah, it is. I am manipulating my life. I have every right to manipulate my life. I don't have a right to necessarily manipulate other people, but I have a right to manipulate my life. If I want more money, I have every right to that. If I feel unsafe, I have every right to manipulate my environment so that I have protection. I have every right, as do you, to manipulate my life in any way I desire. Another side of spellcasting, and the one that people seem to get hung up on the most, is casting spells on other people, manipulating them. How can I get them to love me? How can I get them to leave me alone? How can I get them to do this, that, or the other thing? And for the most part, not entirely and not always, but for the most part, I don't involve myself with either doing that or teaching that. My will is not to be imposed upon other people's freedom. There are some caveats to that. If somebody is bullying me, if somebody is a danger to me, I do have every right to protect myself and to manipulate their behavior insofar as it thwarts my freedom or my will. I do have every right to manipulate you to the degree that you are thwarting my will or my freedom or making me unsafe for any reason. Then there's also cursing, which is a very deep concept, and it's actually a type of spiritual practice that we talk about in many other lectures, so I don't want to go too deeply into that today, but that is a valid type of magic that many people who call themselves witches say, no, you can never do that, or you should never do that. Or on the flip side of it, they're so casual about it, and they think it's funny, and there's memes about cursing people. I don't fall in either of those schools of thought. I find that cursing is a valid practice, and it's a very serious practice, and it's not one that's to be taken lightly, nor to be joked about, at least not for me. You're not going to find me doing too much joking about hexing people or cursing people, nor are you going to really find me hexing or cursing people too often. But it does have its place, and you can look up all of the different lectures that I have on cursing, because there's several. Then there's blessing, which is bless, hence the term blessed be. And a witch's blessing is a very powerful thing. When you cast a spell, like I said before, you have a very specific goal in mind. Whereas if you're blessing somebody, you're not imposing your will upon them. You're not saying, I bless you, therefore you will have that. You are blessing them, not casting a spell on them. And for a blessing to be its most powerful, it really needs to be indiscriminate. I don't bless you because I think you deserve it. Because then all of a sudden there's a manipulation involved. If I think you deserve my blessing, then somehow my blessing has more than just blessing attached to it. It's got an ulterior motive, and that's sneakily coming into the category of spellcasting on some level or another. But if I'm blessing you just because you're in front of me, just because you cross my mind, even if I see you in need, or if I don't see you in need, if I see you happy and prosperous, that also deserves my blessing. My training when it comes to blessing is that I don't have a judgment on who deserves my blessing and who doesn't. I do, but I train myself not to. I train myself out of that, because the ego doesn't really bless, but it convinces us that it does. But an ego's blessing is so full of caveat. There's caveat here, caveat there, condition here, condition there. Whereas I want true blessing when I give it. And a true blessing is unconditional. A true blessing is spontaneous. It has no strings attached. Think about when you give somebody a gift. If there's strings attached to it, you can't truly and honestly call it a gift. It's a tool of manipulation. But if you give somebody something freely, there's no strings attached to it. You hope they love it. You want them to love it. If you hear how much they loved it, that'll make you feel good. But if they don't love it, it's okay. They don't have to. You give them the gift, and if they have to re-gift it, they don't like it, or if they don't use it, that's fine, because it's theirs. You gave it to them. But if you give somebody a shirt, and every time you see them, you say, well, why aren't you wearing that shirt I gave you? That's not a real gift. You gave them something because you wanted them proving to you that they enjoyed your gift. When you give something, if it's a true gift, it's not yours anymore. You've given it away. and you're freed from it. It's theirs now. You're detached from the whole thing. And that's what a blessing needs to be. It's a gift that's given freely with no strings attached, and you don't follow up on it. You don't do anything other than give it. And when you do that, that blessing is so powerful. And it's up to the person, obviously, whether or not they accept the blessing and allow it to make a positive difference in their lives. But you can't undo the fact that they've been blessed by you. If you've given that blessing without any strings attached and you've given it freely from your heart, something good will come from it, one way or another. And if the only good that comes from it is to you, so be it. That's on them, right? If they don't fully receive it, if they don't do anything with it, that's okay because it's still been good for you. We say what we give returns to us. It feels like a boomerang. And by the time it comes back to us, it has increased. But it's not that it really boomerangs. It just appears that way. It's a good image. It's just that by the time it manifests for us, it has expanded. But it never really left us in the first place because it has nowhere to go. It's all in the mind. So it can't go anywhere. There's no distance for it to travel. When you give something, it does return to you multiplied in that by the time it manifests in any way in your life, it's been growing. It's the nature of the mind to expand and to grow. When you give a blessing to someone, you can't help but bless yourself. Ultimately, all blessing is self-blessing. It's an interesting tool to use. Somebody asked me the other day, how can I forgive somebody that's been so bad? How is that possible? It's possible by doing it. The reason why it's possible to do that is because you get to the point where you're not thinking about whether or not they deserve your blessing. Why would that be something that's important? On one hand, that's already the relationship the infinite has with you. The infinite's constantly blessing you, constantly loving you, regardless of what you've done. If it was based on you deserving the blessing because of your behavior or your thoughts or your attitudes and things like that while you're here, you would probably not get so much blessing. Isn't that true? Maybe you're better than me, but if I tallied up all of the bad things that I've thought about people and the anger that I've had towards people and the resentment that I've had towards people and that kind of thing, and the infinite's blessing of me was dependent on those kinds of things, I don't think I'd get that much blessing. But my experience of the infinite is that that blessing comes to me anyway. That's called grace. Grace is something that I receive from the infinite constantly because of who I am. It has nothing to do with my deservingness of it in this lifetime. My personality, my body, all of that the storyline is very ego-driven here. And if it's up to the ego to make me deserving or not deserving of the blessings of the infinite, then I'm screwed. But the infinite doesn't see me as an ego. The infinite sees me as I am, as I was created. When I can do that for other people, when I can say I am willing to bless them regardless of their ego, regardless of what I think of them, I'm just indiscriminate with my blessing. When I can do that, then I start to operate on the same level as my soul, because my soul and the Creator are the same creature, the same fabric, the same type of being. The ego's not. The ego's a construct. The ego's a false reality, a false identity, a false world, a false everything. People say, I don't want to live in this world of illusion anymore. Well, that's a good thing to want, not to want to live in the illusion. But how can you do that? Well, you have to start identifying with yourself as you exist outside of the illusion. That means that you start to identify with yourself as a soul, not as an ego. Well, the only way to do that is to act like one. And you do and your soul operates in the same manner as the Creator. The Creator extends love and it becomes you. And then what you do is you extend love. You extend love out, and those are your creations. And you won't be able to understand how you can create, none of us will, on that level, until you are able to do it within the illusion first. And so the only way out of the illusion is to extend blessing indiscriminately to anybody and everybody you think of, you see, just it becomes a habit. And it's so funny when you tell people about this, because the first response is always, well, you can't live life like that. If you start just blessing indiscriminately, then you're not going to protect yourself. You're going to be a mark for people. You're not going to be able to know when somebody's a danger to you. All you're doing is dispensing blessings to people that don't deserve it. You put yourself in a very vulnerable position. It's interesting because those kinds of reactions are from people that have never done this, that have never experienced life as a blessing machine. It's hard to get to the point where we remember to do things like that when we're involved in the drama of the day-to-day world. But if you schedule it, if you schedule your meditation, if you schedule your spiritual practice, if you schedule time for blessing people, if you schedule it, if it's part of your routine, then it gets taken care of. I was talking to somebody the other day about that. While I'm going about my day, I can't ever remember to think of these things. I'm always being constantly driven by my ego. And my response is, that's fine. Because if you have a spiritual practice, it's only going to be that way until the next scheduled meditation. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Little by little, you'll wake up in the middle of the dream. But for the time being, just schedule your meditation every morning. Just schedule your spiritual practice, your aura cleansing, whatever you're doing. Then you never have to worry about it. Your ego runs amok for 12 hours, but then you have another spiritual practice scheduled. The same thing goes with blessing. If you can't get to the point where you think of yourself as a vehicle of blessing, that's fine. Schedule it. Make it part of your daily routine. Take 5 minutes. I'm going to bless somebody. Whoever happens to cross my mind. No strings attached. Doesn't matter who it is. Whether I like them, don't like them, whether they're important to me, not important to me, completely arbitrary. Whoever happens to cross my mind, I'm going to bless them for a few minutes. And that can just be so-and-so, blessed be. Blessed be so-and-so. I only want all of the blessings of life for you. That's not casting a spell on them. You're not saying, therefore, I want to see these things happen for you. That's very different. They're akin. It's a type of magic, but you're not casting spells on them. You're not manipulating them. You're not trying to get them to do, be, or have anything. All you're doing is acting like your soul for 5 minutes with this one particular person. If you're doing it for one person, you're doing it for everybody. Because the soul understands there is no separation. This is just the object of your blessing at this moment. And the next time it'll be somebody else. And if you do that, where you schedule in regular blessing sessions like that, and you keep it simple, easy, and short, so that you have less propensity to avoid doing it, you will notice that as you go about your life, your day-to-day experiences, you do remember to bless people indiscriminately in the moment, no matter what's happening. If there's a problem in your life, if you're having an issue with something or someone, you bless it. You just give it blessings. You're not casting a spell. You're not saying it must be this, it must be that. Very different. That's a whole different operation. It's blessing. Blessed be. Blessed be. Blessed be this, blessed be that, blessed be this person, blessed be that person, blessed be the photocopier, blessed be the iPhone, whatever you're having an interaction with. It's a wonderful thing if you're having a problem, but it's also a wonderful thing if you're not having a problem. You get into the habit of blessing, and you get into the habit of knowing yourself as a soul. functioning in this world in a different way, functioning as an extender of blessing. And when you are functioning as an extender of blessing, guess what can't operate? That's right, the ego. The ego short circuits in the presence of blessing because it can't compute. It doesn't understand that. The ego is based on grievances and separation and reasons and deservingness and all of that. And indiscriminate blessing is not part of its worldview. The ego short circuits every time you choose blessing over whatever other option there is. Blessed be always gets you out of the path of self-destructive tendencies of the ego. It is a panacea in a way, but don't think of it like that, because then it becomes something else. If you think of it as my new tool to manipulate things, that's an ego thought. It's an ego thought. It's important to understand that we're not talking about manipulating people with blessings. We're talking about functioning as a soul within the illusion. Functioning as a soul within the illusion. That's what that character called Jesus in that New Testament meant by being in the world but not of it. We're in the world, but we're not from here. We're from a different world. And that's not a different place. It's not after we die. It's a different understanding. It's a different perception. And you can't get to that different perception until you're functioning within that perception. And the only way to function within that perception is to respond to things in this world differently. And the way to respond to things in this world differently that brings you that new perspective and that new perception is by blessing indiscriminately within the illusion. Sometimes that'll take the form of forgiveness, but not always. A lot of people are really hung up on forgiveness. They just think that's the worst thing you could possibly do. If I forgive somebody, I'm condoning negative behavior, it's blaming the victim, and yada, yada. And those people understand forgiveness as it's defined by the ego. From the ego's perspective, that's true. But from the soul's perspective, forgiveness is simply a change in the way you see someone. Instead of seeing them as evil and bad, you see them as ill and in need. And when you see somebody who's ill and in need and you bless them, you're not forcing them to be well, but you are taking a stand that I'm functioning as a soul rather than as an ego in regards to this person. But you can't get to that point until you practice doing it indiscriminately. Because if you start going about trying to, quote, fix your relationships by blessing people, you're not blessing people. You're playing another ego game. You got to start with indiscriminate blessing. You have to learn how to bless just because. And the only way I've found that works for me is by scheduling time every day where I just have a little blessing session to whomever happens to cross my mind and not pick and choose. I don't care who it is. If it's somebody in the media that it comes to mind, that's who gets my blessing. If it's somebody that I love very much, that's who gets my blessing. If it's somebody I just loathe and can't stand, that's who gets my blessing. I don't have a say. That's my practice to learn how to do this. But when I can do that every day, I notice that I do have that tool available for me in specific situations. And it's usable in those situations because I've learned how to do it and not allow it to be co-opted by the ego. But that's taken practice. And it's just like practicing the piano. People want to be great musicians. A lot of them stop wanting to be great musicians when they realize how boring it is. You got to practice every day and you got to fix mistakes every single day. And little by little, you get better, but you don't notice you're getting better because it's so slow and so boring. So you don't see how much better you're getting, but your teacher does because they only see you once a week, maybe. Other people that have heard you play before notice after a couple of months, wow, you're really doing well, right? Because you're practicing every day. And then it does get fun because after a while, you are able to play more music that you love. and you are able to do more wonderful things. But that period of time just to get to that point was pretty boring. It took a lot of desire on your part to stick with it. And the same thing goes with blessing. I mean, you're born to bless. That's true. That's your function here. We're all born to bless here, but it takes practice. It takes a practice to get good at it. And ultimately, the idea isn't so much that you're blessing other people so that their lives get better, although they will frequently get better. You're blessing so that you learn how to function as a soul within the illusion, so that you start seeing things differently and that things turn around for you. Everything in magic, ultimately, if it's done right, is done out of self-interest. But self-interest doesn't mean selfishness. Because selfishness is usually self-interest at the expense of others. Whereas from the soul's point of view, self-interest means that it's good for everybody. Start small, take 3 to 5 minutes a day, schedule it in where you bless somebody indiscriminately, whoever happens to cross your mind. If you might be able to get 1 or 2 people in, and then you're done. You can do it once or twice a day and stick with it for about 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And notice the difference in the way that you see things and people. And notice how much easier it is for you to use that in the moment in a way that's impactful and powerful. Starting to see the world very differently as your soul rather than as your ego. It's quite powerful stuff. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.